Hello and welcome to my cellar. Just dive right in because I got some nattering to do at the end. Okay, now I'm assuming somebody heard that I was sick or something when they wrote this. Uh, yeah, you're a genuine treasure. Long may you wave. I'm personally grateful to have had your involvement in the game and it's brought so much joy and adventure to us all. Thank you. And I do not exaggerate when I say the only thing I can say to that is you're very, very welcome. I had a great time doing it, and I'm just tickled to death that so many other people. I got to get centered here. My editor likes me to be centered. I'm just glad that I was involved. I had the opportunity to be involved in something that has had such a profound impact. And I'll just leave it at that. Spell point sounds like it would have turned into 5e, which the new edition of which is crazy. Had no speed differences to the races dwarves and halflings as fast as elves. Everyone slinging spells or having dark vision is why I'm so excited to see Shadow Dark coming along. Was very happy to see it win so many awards at the Ennies at Gen Con. Well, I'm unfamiliar with it and I don't have anything to say one way or another about Shadow Dark, but let me just please remind you that the Ennies are not infallible. And as I recall, back in the day, the Ennies awarded some vampire games that ended up on the auction table at Gen Con within 2 years. However, I'm not. I don't know one thing about it, good or bad, so I'm not trying to, tank anything. And I'm always glad to see gamers excited about new games. I'm always glad to see that. All right, 10 segments in a round, 10 rounds in a turn. I just view this method as a convenient way of keeping track of time, especially when handling large groups of players. A caller or leader helps too. Yeah, and I'm going to stop here for a second. It's not at all a bad thing when a group decides to let one person be the one that's responsible for speaking to the DM. All right? It's not an adversarial situation like one of you stepping up to talk to the bandits that don't want to let you go through, or you run into Tim the Enchanter and you got to answer the questions. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. It's just that a caller really, really helps, especially with large groups. And it makes the DM's job so much easier that I almost guarantee you'll end up having more time because he'll be in a better mood, or she, as the case may be. No slurs intended. That's just my opinion. If players don't like the 1 minute combat round, then try to stay out of combat unless you have surprise. Besides, in AD&D, the monsters aren't worth that many experience points anyway. The real XP is the treasure. Go find treasure. That's a good comment. You're right. Then again, I've never subscribed to the old formulae of awarding experience. And again, the only long-term situation I had that I can cite is in my Carbondale campaign. It was several adventures where somebody said, "Hey, haven't we got experience?" And so we stopped that morning and spent about the next hour figuring out what we'd done in the last several preceding weeks. And several people found out that they'd gone up a level or even two, because I don't believe personally, and again, it's all in how you want to play. I don't like monsters being worth X number of experience points. Now, killing bigger monsters should be worth more than killing little monsters, and all that in between. Okay, that all factors in. But when I was doing it, at the end of the adventure, it was like, yeah, okay, y'all got about 1,100 hit points, or I'm just picking a number out of the air, and everybody got the same number. I don't like playing where, unless the party chooses to say, oh, give him all the credit for this and such, or whatever, that's up to the party. But then again, I didn't award experience that was equal to what they had killed and captured and looted, because I also awarded experience points for a great idea, wonderful insight, heroic deed. I was much more fluid with experience because I see it as more as just that, experience, facility in what you're doing. And so along those lines, that's how we did it back then. However you want to do it is entirely up to you. I never, ever believed in one gold piece, one experience point, and I still don't. No, I just don't. You happen to find, the group stumbles upon a big treasure. Now you, the DM, have put it in there with some justification or other, but they stumble along a big treasure, and they get rich, rich, rich. That I don't believe is the same as getting experience. Now, maybe after they've squandered all that treasure, but that's just the way I do it. Well, everyone knows you cannot have a meaningful campaign if strict time records are not kept. No, everyone does not. It all depends on your definition of strict. Are you going down to hours and days? Okay, while you're out on the trail in an adventure, obviously you have to keep track of 24-hour cycles. Rest, recuperation, relearning spells, etc. But other times, I don't know that you have to be keeping a log of everything that happens. I think you can generalize here. I think it needs to be generalized before you get bogged down in the nitpick and nitty-gritty. Yeah, okay, it was 4 game days ago that you got beat up. Okay, no, you can't go on the next one unless you go beat up. Okay, that time. Okay, all right. That I can see. But, yeah, the rest of it, in Lake Geneva, time was kept in a general sense so that somebody that had gotten beaten up pretty badly and was recuperating was not available to adventure until a certain time had passed. And we all played pretty much on the honor system. And so as time went by, oh, well, okay, there's an adventure going on where? Okay, not enough time has gone by for my favorite go-to fighter. All right, look through my stable and decide to take my badass cleric. Sure, that's important. But strict time records? No, I'm sorry. The only time you need strict time is when you're dealing with combat and when you're dealing with adventuring. And adventuring is still in that 24-hour cycle that you have to keep track of. But I don't think you have to be all nitpicky strict about time. Don't get hung up on it. Don't get bogged down in it. A little loosey-goosey never hurt anything, never hurt a campaign. Can't see how it could. I'm sure somebody's got an idea how it could, but I can't see it, don't want to see it. Just looking for a confirmation on the pronunciation thing. I was told that O-E-R-F, just a minute, O-E-R-T-H. Gary's World, in other words. It's supposed to be pronounced almost like saying Earth with a Bugs Bunny Brooklyn accent. So what? Oith? No. I always have pronounced it and thought that I was pronouncing it correctly as O-A-R-T-H. Orth. Orth. That's what I always thought it was. Don't know when I made that decision, when that implanted in my head, but there it is. What advice do you have on teleportation in D&D? When would I deign to use it? Well, teleportation. I know it's in there. There's spells for it and devices and whatever. I would be very, very precise and detail-oriented in The Curse of the Weaver Queen, which was put out by Old Guard Games, part of World of Game Design. The Curse of the Weaver Queen, when I wrote it, had several. It had a device. It had a mechanism for teleporting from one temple to another that was mostly broken when at the period of time when the adventure takes place. Now, as they redeveloped it, now you can go zipping around. And when you're teleporting with a device, okay, that's just a time expedient. I don't really have a problem with that as long as it's a justifiable presence in the adventure. When you get into the spells, that's when I would start cracking down on precision. And it's not just, I'm going to teleport back to home. Where at home? How, I would get down to it, and then nothing being perfect, well, you meant to teleport to the flagstones in front of your front door, and instead you teleported into the front wall and took a big knot on your nose or something like that. There's always got to be a chance for something to malfunction, just as there's always got to be a chance for some player character by dumb luck to do something extraordinary that you never figured they would. That's how I would treat it. If it's a fixture, a machine, a device, a pentacle, whatever, to a known point, okay, quick transit. Just to clarify, my proselytizer comment was general. It wasn't directed at you. It's abundantly clear you're just stating your opinion. And so then this one drew a few responses. I think we all know that you were talking about new breed gamers who may or may not even actually play games, who probably just stir shit on the internet, but spend their time online getting offended at everything and calling D&D racist. Well, I don't think we all knew that. Next reply, can we just stop the "they don't play how I like, so they must not even play the game" nonsense? It got old in 2008 and is even more so now. Besides, the only people I ever see getting super offended are those who keep throwing fits about female Olympic boxers, Bud Light, and constantly whining about an image in a recent D&D book. When 4E came out, I ignored it and played 1E. I didn't go on forums constantly whining about 4E players. I suggest doing the same. I agree. Play what you want. I don't play 5E. Didn't play 4, didn't play 3.5, didn't play 3, didn't play 2. Played O and first. Play what you like. You know, I saw an interesting post on Facebook, I think today or yesterday, about what Hasbro doesn't understand. Because now they're doing what a year ago, I believe, I predicted would happen. They're going to do microtransactions. Now you can buy armor. You have to pay to play on their server, whatever. You don't. If you got a group of 6 regular players, split up a year's, if you all play it, okay, let's take the Knights. All right? They all play at BA's house. So the Knights all pony up. You get a Zoom channel, and you do it that way. You divide it up, and you can do it that way. It's a mystery to me why some people seem to get so religiously worked up into some sort of fervor, especially when it's something that I wrote. I didn't write in stone. We weren't sitting up in the mountaintops tracing the rules with our fingertips in stone slabs. Okay, now I have another individual. I'm going to give them their last opportunity to be foolish. And I'm only doing it because, yes, soccer, or football, as it's called in the rest of the world, is a game. And this person put on something about, in November 2023, the U.S. women's national soccer team lost 5-2 to the FC Dallas Under-15 Boys Academy in practice. In October 2023, the Australian women's soccer team also lost to a team of 15-year-old boys with score 3-0. Okay. My response, I put right in after this. I don't normally do this in public. A friendly, get real. Friendlies don't mean shit. All right? They don't. Chelsea and Man City, are both here in the United States right now. They don't have their full lineup of all their top players. Some of the players come over, they play a few games because they're okay, I'll be there for these 6. And then they're not there. Friendlies, unless it's an Olympic warm-up or the last game before the World Cup, friendlies don't mean shit. The full team's not there. They're experimenting with position changes and different shapes and lineups. That's what friendlies are for. And that's why you don't see the Premier League teams playing each other in friendlies with full rosters. Chelsea's over here right now. City's over here right now. They played each other. It was a friendly. Holland has been here for City for a few games, but he wasn't here at the beginning of their tour, and I don't believe he's going to be here at the last. Okay, friendlies don't mean shit. If you don't know anything about soccer, that's a good way to show it. If you don't understand the culture of a friendly. Think also, do a bunch of 17 to 27-year-old women really want to beat up and hammer a bunch of 15-year-old boys, play their rough physical game? If anybody just watched the recent Olympics, Germany is one of the roughest, toughest female football teams I've ever seen. They couldn't do anything if they didn't clatter into people and push. They did it very well, and they got very few penalties called. If they had played a similar group of 15-year-old boys, they'd have sent half of them off the field on a stretcher. In soccer specifically, there are other examples of competitive environments where monetary reward is involved, with women's team made up of professional players and former Olympians getting crushed by either mixed teams or men's teams. Well, I don't believe we were talking about men playing women. Okay? Any more than men don't compete with women in the field, track and field. Okay? Boys, youngsters, the argument started that the women's pro team would get beat by a bunch of boys. No way. That would be literally the upset of the century in the football field world. And keep in mind that these guys getting this chance, they're out trying to play the best soccer they've ever played in their lives against a team that's just out there working out new schemes, new shapes, new lineups, and new positions. Come on. You can't be foolish enough to believe what you write. And I didn't, I'm not even going to go on anymore about this. Subject closed. You obviously don't know very much about soccer, and I'm not going into any of the other crap that came after. And here's this. I promised myself I wouldn't call responses stupid. Here's the silliest one. Imagine if the boys had been trying. You don't think they weren't? You do not know anything about soccer players. I raised 2. I coached dozens. I refereed. I know kids and youth soccer. I coached young boys and girls. A 9-year-old girls team would smoke a 10 or 11-year-old boys team because girls mature sooner. Sometimes I just have a. I always thought it unrealistic to have a gnome or halfling or any creature that's 3 feet tall and weighs between 30 and 60 pounds having a strength over 8. In my mind, that just isn't realistic. Since when did realism have anything to do with fantasy? Okay? You want to give a gnome a strength of 8? Fine. No. If you look at all the lore about dwarves, a heavy preponderance of it has them being very strong, and smiths and tinkerers and what have you. Yeah, it's fantasy, You can't play Red Sonja if you can't be as strong or stronger than the dudes. Nobody I ever played it with wants a game without Red Sonja. I always felt that the character choices with regards to race were more strategic and interesting based on a dwarf's ability to see in the dark or adapt well to an underground environment versus the human benefit of no level cap. These types of choices were more interesting and significant than a 1 or 2 ability, a +1 or +2 ability score. Right. And there were reasons all those were put on there. All those different caps, because they played off against different strengths. The wheelchair, this is another comment I made that I just didn't understand. The wheelchair thing seems fine if the player brings some sort of creative aspect to their movement. Maybe like a Master Blaster, Mad Max type relationship. You remember Master Blaster and the little evil shit that sat on his shoulders. Relationship with another anthropomorph creature or animal to use as a vehicle. Having the machine of a wheelchair just seems impractical and lacking in imagination unless they plan to stay within civilized areas. Well, that's the thing. And and as a person who has a mobility scooter, I can tell you, unless you spend a lot of money and upgrade to suspension and big knobby tires and that, mobility scooters are great on pavement, great on asphalt. The occasional level grassy field, no problem. And it ends there. You can buy wheelchairs that have treads. We once had a company come out and demonstrate them at one of our events many years ago at Fishing Has No Boundaries. It's got a triple wheel basic setup with treads and a chair, and yeah, it'll go across, it'll do that. But there again, if you want to, I would think that would be more suitable to something like Mutant Crawl Classics, in more of a sci-fi variant than in a fantasy variant. Because let's face it, we go down dirt tunnels, we go down stone hallways. Believe me, I know, trying to use a scooter on a brick road, I know what that's like. All right. So, yeah, anyway. But, hey, it's your bag, I don't care if you get a magic chair that's got wings on it. It's fantasy. Knock yourself out. All right, and then I spent a bit of time last night making a clip, a video clip with Don Samora, who's the head of Wizard Tower Games, talking about the Lost Adventures of Gary Con, that is now out and in print and sent to all the Kickstarter people, and there's some sample copies been sent out for reviewers and that. And it was just a lot of fun. I'm sure I'll have my editor, Jim, put a link on the end of this so you can go look at Wizard Tower Games website and see it. And I'm sure there's probably a link for the video itself. I'm real pleased with it. Some of it is a little. I don't want to say awkward. It's a little. Some of it's just a tad dated, but not in a bad sense. Just in a. We do some things a little differently now. We did it then one way, and now they're done. I'm very pleased with it. I think it's dynamite, and I think you should look around for a review or something, because Don and I we're going to say it's great because we made it, but it is, and so you should go check it out. And I believe that's all I have to talk about, except one more thing. Justin posted a bit, one of his alter ego sites, whatever they call those, posted that you shouldn't go to WizardCon because it's a cover for an organization of pedophiles. Now, one of the things that I found interesting about this post was that the way they spelled pedophiles. I wasn't sure if that was supposed to be British or whatever. The person posting them has no brains to speak of to begin with. We've already had a conversation with the site, the hotel, and they're like, yeah, right. We don't believe that. Mainly because several of the managers are gamers. So we warned them in advance, hey, this guy's being a jackass. And so he tried sticking something in one of mine, and I jerked him, and I turned him in again for hateful speech, causing hate, writing hate speech. Because I think it's pretty hateful to accuse somebody of being a pedophile. If Facebook doesn't, well, oops, sorry, I'll find a better way to illuminate his vile and disgusting, slimy, subhuman behavior. So if you see any of that, believe me, we're going to have a good time at Dragon Con. We got some interesting, really interesting people from the industry that are coming. We got some great companies coming to show you and sell you their wares. And we're going to have, not only is there a restaurant in the hotel, we're going to have food trucks, and I think if they can make a Critical Hit sodas coming, I hope we're extending an invitation to them, and they're going to be coming. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be limited in number of tickets sold. So I would suspect sometime October or November it will all be completed. Perhaps sooner, but I don't want to promise. But we'll have everything in place. Everything will be set up for people to enter the games they want to run. And how many, all the stuff you do at every other con. We've had the virtue of being able to watch other people do things and decide how we would like to do it without having to experiment ourselves. So watch this space, as the old fence advertising used to say. Watch this space. Watch this space. And in the meantime, have a good time. The Olympics are almost over. I know I love the Olympics, but my God, they take forever. And there's a whole bunch of bogus bullshit that they're competing for in the Olympics. Breakdancing? Oh, come on. Breakdancing? Anyway, there's several others that I think are kind of hokey too. But who am I? I'm not the IOC. And on that note, I'll say do-do-like-o-be. Hello, and welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Last man around when them rates went down. Calling Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard's brain. ESR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon.